The 1939 German offensive transformed the perception of armored vehicle assaults and their potential threat. Heinz-Guderian's advancements in combined arms tactics emphasized the utilization of armored forces as the foremost method of projecting formidable striking power, delivering a profound shock impact when employed collectively. Initially, the Allied assessments attributed the German army's success in swiftly conquering France solely to their tanks. However, they failed to fully grasp the crucial role of supporting arms in exploiting the breakthrough and facilitating the advance. As a result, there was a frantic rush to develop an effective method to counter and defeat the German Panzer. The tanks utilized by American armored units were specifically tailored to fulfill the intended role of the armored division. These formations were designed to encircle enemy positions and operate deep within the opponent's rear area. Therefore, the vehicle designs prioritized maneuverability and mobility, rather than firepower and heavy armor protection. The M4 Sherman medium tank emerged as the primary American tank during the Second World War. It played a pivotal role in the war effort, with approximately 50,000 units manufactured and deployed by both the American and Allied armies. However, its 75mm main gun was insufficient in terms of armor-piercing capability, as it sacrificed firepower and armor for greater mobility. Therefore, standard tactics for a 5-tank platoon engaging German Tiger and Panther tanks necessitated one section to act as a decoy, drawing the enemy fire, while the other section maneuvered to flank the German tanks and engage them from the vulnerable side or rear positions. Such tactics were never morale builders for tank crews, nor could the M4's armor protect them from the high-velocity 75mm and 88mm guns, commonly mounted on German tanks. In such encounters, American tank units heavily depended on support from aircraft, artillery, and tank destroyers to compensate for the Sherman's vulnerabilities and engage the enemy effectively. In the quest for viable anti-tank solutions, the development of the tank destroyer emerged as the logical path forward. To equip this vehicle with formidable offensive capabilities, the United States introduced the 76mm M1 gun. The designated vehicle tasked with fulfilling this mission would be the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer. In April 1944, a small number of Sherman tanks equipped with the M1A1 76mm anti-tank gun arrived in the European theater of operations. However, due to the prevailing perception of tanks primarily serving as infantry support, commanders were initially hesitant to accept them. This reluctance stemmed from the fact that the previous 75mm high-explosive rounds contained twice the amount of explosive compared to their 76mm anti-tank counterparts. No 76mm Shermans took part in the Normandy invasion during Operation Overlord on June 6, 1944. This was due to the hesitation of trading the high lethality of the 75mm HE rounds against personnel for improved armor penetration performance offered by the 76mm anti-tank rounds. As the U.S. Army advanced inland from the beaches, the mistake of not having 76mm Shermans became evident. The German Panzer IV, produced in large numbers and for an extended period during the war, underwent modifications and continuous upgrades. This meant that Allied armored units had a higher likelihood of encountering a Panzer IV on the battlefield compared to any other German panzer. The 76mm gun equipped with the APC rounds would have easily overcome earlier models of German panzers. However, When the 76mm gun arrived in the European theater of operations during the summer of 1944, the Panzer IV had already undergone several upgrades in terms of armor and armament. Initially, the Panzer IV and Panther utilized face-hardened steel armor, but as production continued, they transitioned to rolled homogeneous steel armor. However, the progression of the war posed challenges for the Germans, as they faced a shortage of molybdenum, a critical ingredient for producing high-quality armor. Therefore, the later armor plates became more brittle and prone to cracking upon impact. This led to significant variations in the quality of armor among Panther tanks, with some plates being improperly tempered and susceptible to shattering upon impact. On the other hand, the Panther tanks with good quality armor exhibited significantly higher toughness. The 75mm gun proved entirely insufficient against upgraded German armor. Also, the 76mm APC failed to conquer the Panther in frontal assaults, even at close quarters. The incapacity of the 3-inch and 76mm guns to breach the Panther's frontal armor sent a seismic shock through Allied command. The key factor preventing penetration of the front hull seems to be the sloped design of the armor. Flanking and rear attacks yielded far better results. While the Tiger tank posed a formidable challenge, the low likelihood of encountering it, along with the strategy of attrition, diminished the overall threat it posed. Throughout the breakthrough battles of July and August 1944, tank crews from the 2nd Armored Division gained valuable experience in engaging German Panther and Tiger tanks using their M4 Shermans. They were well aware that the ammunition used in the 75mm gun, which was mounted on most of the M4 Shermans, was incapable of penetrating the heavily armored front of Panthers and Tigers, regardless of the range, but could damage the sides and rear. Consequently, the tankers employed wide encircling movements, employing one platoon of tanks to divert the enemy's attention, while another platoon attacked from the rear. However, these tactics came at a heavy cost. During the period from July 26 to August 12, 1944, a tank battalion from the 2nd Armored Division suffered devastating losses. Over half of its combat personnel were killed or wounded, and around 70% of its tanks were either destroyed or required evacuation for extensive repairs in the 4th echelon. By employing flanking tactics and leveraging artillery support to directly target enemy tanks, the American forces emerged victorious in their battles and dealt substantial blows to the Germans, resulting in heavy losses for the enemy. As the Ruhr offensive commenced in November 1944, the 2nd Armored Division had managed to enhance its firepower to some extent. Approximately half of the division's M4 tanks were now armed with the more potent 76mm gun. Utilizing the newly developed but limited tungsten carbide-cored HVAP ammunition, the tankers had the capability to penetrate the front belly plate of the Panther from a distance of 300 yards. At a closer range of 200 yards, they had a reasonable chance of penetrating the front slope plate. Furthermore, the division's tank destroyer battalion had recently received the new M36 destroyers, which were equipped with the formidable 90mm gun. The 76mm hypervelocity, armor-piercing tracer, or HVAPT shot proved advantageous, as it could effectively target the front of the Panther turret at typical combat distances in the European theater of operations. In August 1944, the first shipment of 2,000 rounds of 76mm HVAPT ammunition was delivered to France via air transport. Shortly after, on September 18, the M18 tank destroyers from the 704th and 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalions engaged German tanks near Lunéville, France. Remarkably, the M18 successfully destroyed 8 Panthers during the battle, without suffering any losses of their own. American soldiers were well aware of the ineffectiveness of frontal attacks against German armor, recognizing that targeting the thinner rear armor provided better chances of success. As tactics evolved alongside advancements in technology, the introduction of the M176mm gun and the HVAP shot proved crucial in leveling the playing field and securing victory during the Battle of the Bulge. Throughout the remainder of the Second World War, this 76mm ammunition continued to have a significant impact, making a difference in combat engagements. During the battle at Puffendorf on November 17, 1944, the Shermans engaged in a desperate fight, bravely attempting to engage the enemy tanks with their 75 and 76mm guns. However, the tanks that managed to get within range for their guns to be effective were swiftly targeted and destroyed by enemy fire. In some instances, when American tankers managed to land direct hits on German tanks, their shells would ricochet off the thick armor, soaring into the air without causing significant damage. For example, it took one Sherman tank firing 14 rounds of 76mm ammunition at a Tiger tank before achieving any success, only to be destroyed shortly afterward by another Tiger tank. As some tank companies found themselves with only 3 or 4 tanks left, and ammunition running critically low, both battalions requested reinforcements in the form of 90mm tank destroyers. These can openers, as they were referred to by the tankers, played a vital role in repelling the German forces. However, the victory came at a heavy price for the 2 battalions, with significant losses in terms of tanks and personnel. The day's intense action on the Ruhr Plain resulted in the 2nd Armored Division losing 38 medium tanks either destroyed or knocked out, along with 19 light tanks. Additionally, there were 56 soldiers killed, 281 wounded, and 26 reported missing, with the majority of these losses occurring during the battle at Puffendorf. The requirements for tank destroyer vehicles inadvertently led to compromises that greatly hindered the primary role of the M176mm gun in effectively engaging and defeating enemy tanks. In contrast, the British had no limitations imposed by doctrine on the weight of their cannons. They successfully incorporated their own 76mm gun, known as the 17-pounder, which proved to be the most effective anti-tank gun among the Allied forces throughout the war. The British Sherman Firefly tank, armed with the 17-pounder gun, outperformed its American counterparts due to its longer barrel and threefold increase in propellant. This combination resulted in a considerably higher muzzle velocity, giving the British Sherman a substantial advantage in firepower compared to the US 76mm variant. The APDS round developed for the 17-pounder boasted an impressive muzzle velocity of 3,950 feet per second, giving the weapon the capability to penetrate and defeat all German armored vehicles, even at extended ranges surpassing typical tank engagements in the European theater of operations. This solution proves to be entirely plausible and effective in addressing the Panzer upgrade problem. In early 1944, the U.S. Army faced a crucial decision regarding its armored forces, whether to stick with the M4 Sherman or prioritize production of the new M26 Pershing heavy tank. The tank debate divided commanders, with some favoring the Pershing. However, Lieutenant General George S. Patton, renowned for his expertise in tanks, advocated for the smaller and supposedly more maneuverable Sherman. Patton believed that tanks should bypass enemy tanks if possible, and focus on attacking rear objectives. Despite concerns raised, senior Allied commanders, including General Dwight Eisenhower, sided with Patton and chose to increase Sherman production. In hindsight, this decision is widely regarded as one of the most detrimental choices of World War II, potentially prolonging the war and resulting in significant losses for tank crew members. Over the next 11 months, the 3rd Armored Division, starting with 232 M4 tanks in the Normandy campaign, suffered immense losses. 648 Shermans were destroyed in combat, with 700 more disabled and awaiting repairs, an astounding cumulative loss rate of 580%. Tank crew casualties soared, leading to a severe shortage of experienced personnel. By late 1944, desperate measures were taken, as newly arrived infantrymen were hastily trained and deployed as replacement tank crews. Some of these recruits received just a single day of armor training, before being sent to the front in their M4 tanks. The situation underscored the pressing demand for tanks, and the dire measures taken to maintain armored forces amidst the relentless battles.